Good morning and welcome to my next war game. Now the French, believing that the bulk of the Allied forces are over to the west, only have a small garrison protecting this road. And of course the road is called the Riverview Road. Some landmarks over on the river. We have the Hanna Mill, and behind them is you can see there the Bale Cross Ford, and that's the Lutzen Road connecting it all. And of course Stockade Village is behind them. Okay, now this garrison of course is not made up of French premium troops. They're off with the main body. In fact, basically the only French infantry here today is a battalion of French grenadiers. The rest of the army is made up of gendarmes, well they're French, Royal African Battalion. The next one across is the Basques, Battalion of Basques, and behind them a battalion of Corsican troops, and out the front German rifles. Now there were German troops who fought for the French, and they did have rifles, which the French army did not. Napoleon didn't actually see the value in them. Behind is the commander, and he has his bodyguard of Mamelukes, and his cavalry today are the beautiful 5th Hussars. But the French are quite light on for cavalry compared to how they normally fight, but that's because they're not expecting any trouble on this road. So, and let us not forget the artillery, 2 heavy guns. So it certainly is not a manoeuvrable force, but, and it's just really meant to block this road. Now, coming down the road the other way are Austrians. Well, actually, they're more Hungarians. And as you can see, there's a battalion of Hungarians there. They've come up the steps to the church and then down, and they're going to come through the forest. They've got their skirmishers out in front, and their artillery today is made up of 2 field guns, because field guns move quicker than heavies, and a horse gun attached to their cavalry, which just happens to be a regiment of Hungarian cuirassiers, heavy cavalry. Remember, the French only have hussars. They have a regiment of grenadiers, another regiment of line. Of course, there's 3 battalions to the regiment. That's the 1st Battalion, 2nd Battalion, 3rd Battalion, with some light troops, as I said. Now, I just happened to have overheard the Austrians' tactics. They're looking at the French and they're thinking, not much room for manoeuvre. It's just going to be a battle of aggression. But the tricky bit is he's ordered the cuirassiers, along with the horse gun, to immediately cross the ford, travel down on the other side. And this river from the mill down is not passable because the banks are too steep and the water's too deep. But on the other side, once you pass it, it actually becomes crossable, not only at the ford but anywhere along. It's wider, slower, more shallow, and the banks aren't so bad. The cuirassiers are to travel down that side of the river, cross it, and knock the French out of the battle by destroying their ammunition train, which is situated back here. It's not even protected because the French aren't expecting that much trouble. So that's going to be very interesting. Let's see how it all goes. We'll start with move number 1. End of move 1, and the battle started with artillery doing counter battery to each other. And what's happened is both of the Austrian guns concentrated on that French battery over there, and they've taken out a couple of gun crews so far, but the heavy batteries of the French firing back are taking out the same number of casualties in each of the Austrian field guns, so they can't sustain too much of that. The troops have started to move forward. They don't want to get in front of their guns, and at the moment it's a slow approach while they wait for their cuirassiers, who have started to cross the ford, to get around there and harass the French flanks. End of move number 2, and one of the Austrian field guns has been hit by the heavy opposite, and it's destroyed it. That's going to speed things up a bit. Now the Austrians need to push their infantry in as that gun's out of action. This gun over here is taking casualties and is not looking good, but both of the Austrian field guns have been causing casualties on that French heavy. Meanwhile, the cuirassiers are crossing Culm Ford. End of move number 3, and this time the Austrian field gun has actually hit the French heavy and knocked it out. So that's evened things up just a little bit. As you can see, the Austrian troops are moving forward. The lights are engaging the German rifles, and there's a few casualties coming out there. But and the Austrian cuirassiers are nearly across the Culm Ford. End of move number 4, and the infantry are going forward. You can see here that the heavy gun is now firing canister, and it's cutting troops down in this line battalion as they go forward. The light infantry here of the Austrians are taking on the German rifles, remembering that the rifle is a more accurate weapon, but it fires slower, so the casualties are coming out roughly the same. Something I've actually negated to tell you, which is really important. The commander here sent a message a couple of moves ago to the Hussars, telling them to move up to face the cuirassiers, try and block them from crossing, because he can see that from where he is. And the cuirassiers are now across the river with their horse gun, and that's going to be one of the things to watch throughout this battle. That's the end of move number 4. End of move number 5, and the general firing has taken place all along the line. The end result is, of course, though, that this particular battalion here that was facing the canister from the French gun has lost too many people, soldiers, and their morale has broken, and they've turned and they're fleeing. But in the volley that took place, they killed most of the French crew that were manning the gun before it fired its canister back at them. So that French gun now is out of action. All the French guns are out of action. This battalion of Austrians over here, which is of course the 1st Battalion of the 1st Regiment, has taken a lot of casualties, but it's still holding. But it is being backed up by Grenadiers and the 3rd Battalion, of the 1st Regiment coming forward. So over here, the French Hussars have lined up along the riverbank to let the Austrian cuirassiers know that it's not all going to be sugar and spice for them, but the Austrians are coming along anyway. That horse gun there is following. It needs to get into action to try and help this battle that's going on here. Okay, end of move number 6, and now this battalion here, the 1st Battalion of the 1st Regiment, has also broken, but the Royal African Regiment has also battalion rather, has also broken and is in retreat. It's not looking good for the Austrians to win this one. They've got the Grenadiers here, but look at the French Grenadiers over there, much bigger regiment. And this battalion here is formed in the double column. I suspect they're going to try and column charge what's left of the Basques. The cuirassiers and the horse gun have still continued down. So, but this attack here seems to be actually petering out. The lights have come in to protect the retreating battalion, and they're still firing at the rifles. Alrighty, well, there's not much left now, I don't believe. End of move number 7, and the interesting thing that's happened here is that Austrian battalion in double column did attack and hit the Basque battalion and won the melee. The Basques have been pushed back at bayonet point and are on the retreat. Unfortunately, the odds weren't large enough for the Austrians to follow through. So they've won the melee all right, but now they have to stop at that point and reform. Meanwhile, the cuirassiers with their gun are pushing forward. The lights over here are the only troops on this flank engaged, but they are keeping the action going. Okay, so this is just the end of the movement phase of move number 8, not the end, all right? Something I just wanted to show you here. The cuirassiers have turned and crossed the stream to attack the 5th French Hussars waiting on the other side. Now, Hussars carry a small carbine, and they were ordered to load the carbine. As the cuirassiers came out of the river, the Hussars fired their carbine. Now, these Austrian cuirassiers are called that because they have a cuirass on the front, and it deflected a good 50% of the musket balls or the carbine balls, but it did actually kill 5 of them as they crossed. So that's interesting. The Austrian horse gun is now firing down the flank of the Corsican battalion over there. It's doing something useful. But now we'll work out whether or not and the other thing too is, of course, that the cuirassiers coming out of the creek lose a lot of their hard-hitting bonus that they get for being heavy cavalry. So it'll be basically anyone's fight. I'd say a 50-50 chance of either side winning. Okay, now this is the end of move number 8, and that melee, would you believe, the Austrian cuirassiers actually won and sent the French Hussars into retreat. So now they are across the river, the baggage train is over there unprotected, and the Basque and the Corsicans are in retreat. The French Grenadiers are holding, and the commander has a small detachment of Mamelukes. But the Austrian line cannot go forward. It is stalled at that point through morale. The Grenadiers can go forward, but they're too small to handle the French Grenadiers. The French have, of course, the gendarmes over there backing up their German rifles. And see these Austrian battalions here, they've retreated because of their casualties, but they've been reformed. They can't go forward, but they can stand and fight at that point. However, any sort of casualty rate on them and they would be off again. So it really hangs in the balance now. It could be anyone's game at this point. Battle, not game. End of move number 9, and the Austrian horse gun is now firing ball down the flank of the German Grenadiers, and that's taking a real toll. Meanwhile, Grenadiers, the Austrian Grenadiers, which are the only ones that can go forward, are waiting in line. They're bringing up their reserve, well not reserve, their field gun, which is still operational. And I suspect they're going to try and bombard the French out of this position instead of attacking. Over here, the Austrian cuirassiers have formed up after their successful attack. And there's the French Hussars, the 5th, in retreat. But the Mamelukes have come on and they're going to try and stop them. It's getting desperate for the French now. It looked pretty good a while back, but yep, the lights over there are keeping each other occupied, and an order has gone out to the gendarmes to pull back, and they're coming back in line in good order. Right, it's the end of move number 10 and the game is over. The Austrian cuirassiers have easily defeated the Mamelukes by sheer numbers and are now in the rear of the French. The commander here will make a run for it, protected by the remainder of his Hussars, the 5th Regiment of Hussars. The rest of the army, the Grenadiers, are being pounded by the Austrian horse gun across the river, firing into their flanks, and now this field gun has been brought into operation, and it's reducing, well, that horse gun is reducing these Grenadiers by a considerable number each shot. If they go forward now, they may just beat the Austrian Grenadiers, but probably not, especially with the field gun ploughing canister into them. The rest of these infantry you can see here are in retreat, and they're going to run fair into these cuirassiers and either surrender or be cut to pieces. The gendarmes here are in good order. They're pulling back, but the truth is that they're no contest for those cavalry. And if they go into square, they'll probably just be held in square until the horse gun or the field gun can clean them up. Now the German rifles here, they'll have to pull back as well, because they won't have any protection in the rear, and they'll have to basically make a run for it or surrender. If the cuirassiers could capture the French commander, that would be the end of the game, but he does move at the same speed as them, so he could probably just keep ahead of them, and these brave Hussars would no doubt try to protect him by attacking these French cuirassiers and keeping them busy just long enough for him to make a retreat. But when he gets back to command, he's going to have himself some messengers, perhaps some Hussars, and that's it. Whatever is in his pockets is all he'll be left with. So this has turned into quite a decisive victory. Decisive may be one grade lower than decisive, but the Austrians have certainly caused the French to abandon this town in the Ypres Valley and yeah, give it up. So that's the end of the game. Now I won't be doing a revision of it as I normally do, for the simple reason that is very simple. The Austrian cuirassiers came around the flank there with their horse gun. They crossed, beat the French Hussars, and that was really, could have gone either way. If it had, the Austrians would have probably have held this field, except those two guns, sorry, the French would have held this field, but the two guns that the Austrians have could have sat there and pounded at them all day long. Who knows how that probably, well, we pretty much know how that might have ended up anyway. But yeah, on this flank here, you know, the French held, but on this section over here, the Austrians have crashed through. Well, they haven't, because that line can't go forward, but certainly the Grenadiers, who have taken up position in the front now, and the other lines moved to the rear, can go forward. So it's a Austrian victory, and I hope you've enjoyed watching it again. If you do, subscribe, and I'll keep bringing you more. All right, farewell for now. The priest at Bailen Church blessed the Austrian commander for helping rid his town of the French. This engagement, this small skirmish, may very well be called Bailen Church skirmish. A couple of statistics about the game. Both sides were built to 1,700 points value, give or take a point. And there was no choreographing. The action was fought using the tricolour rules, and the result is, as I said, not choreographed. It's just how it turned out. It could have gone either way. Okay, thanks again. Bye for now.